live, and in 1 minute you could.
Okay, excellent.
Hey, welcome everybody. We will be live very soon, but before starting, our teaser.
I found someone new now. I have more room, no more formats to chain me. On the same page, we are effortless, schemaless, living in the future, you and me, made for us, serverless, living in the future of the clouds.
All right, everybody. I think we are live. We are together for 2 hours. So let's get rolling. Before starting, just an audio check. Can you give us a thumb up if you hear me well, if you hear Aaron well? So Aaron, please say a few words.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone. Well, I heard me. I think it's okay.
Okay, all right. So let's get rolling. I'm Cedric Lundgren. I'm leading the developer advocacy team at DataStax, trainer, public speaker. You see me every week or very often. So let's move quickly. Today with me, Aaron.
Hey, hello, everyone. I'm Aaron. Yep, you see me often too. And I see Cedric all the time. So there you go.
So you're in good shape for today. So today we will build a clone of the GoodRib apps using Java and Spring technical stack. But before starting, quickly a little bit of housekeeping. If this is the first time you join one of those live technical workshops, so the content has been built with me, Aaron, but also the whole team that you can see on screen. They will also help you during the Endzone answering your question on the YouTube chat. Because it's interactive. So we are live on YouTube. The session is recorded and you can come back later and see the video. It's interactive because we will ask you a question. First, a very simple question about where are you, where do you live? And in the end, a game to see if you pay attention about what we stated. We are monitoring the YouTube chat to answer your question. We also have a Discord room because if you watch the recording right now, cannot really interact with us. This is the Discord room you need to go to also keep asking questions all the time. It's a workshop, not a webinar. We expect you to work, do some technical exercises, browse some code, and you don't have to install anything. All the materials are on GitHub. The README, the slides, the exercises, the instruction. You will need a database. Of course, we will use a cloud database, free to use. And you need an IDE with Spring and Java and Maven, and you don't have to install either. We will use an IDE in the cloud called GitHub, which is a kind of VS Code in the cloud. It's very powerful. You will have a very good understanding. And also, it's free.
Yeah, that free part's important.
Yeah, all about the free. Okay, so I told you it would be interactive. So how does this interactive work? So you open a new tab or you use your phone and you go to menti.com and you enter the code that is on screen and you will be with me live playing the game. And during the time waiting for people to join, so I see Ciaran stating that it's the URL is not in the comment. So let me fix that right away for you. But yeah, now the GitHub repository is in the YouTube chat.
Well, that was quick.
All right, I see 40 people on YouTube, only 8 in the quiz. Let's wait for 1 more minute and let's move. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so for now it's not a contest. It's just a question for you. Okay, and it's a single question. Where are you from? We are live. We try to pick a time that would fit most time zone, but sometimes we cannot really fit everybody. So let's see. And see, it's distributed, right? We have folks from EMEA, APAC, and North America. So that's great. And if you're joining from India or even Eastern, thank you very much for joining. I know it must be late for you. So we will stay together for 2 hours. I promise we will stick to the 2 hours slot. So thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, we'll try our best. Oh, hey, someone on from Nigeria. That's awesome. Yeah, the more and more we do these, Cedric, I'm seeing more folks from like Brazil, South America, as well as a lot of countries in Africa, and that's so cool that we're kind of getting that flavor of the world,
Exactly, I love that, and yeah, it's distributed. So yeah, all right. So I promised it was very quick, but it's just to show you how to use Menti, because at the end of the session again we will have a quiz. And this is where you will answer questions, see your name on screen, and see if you pay attention in the session. You can have a badge. There is no certificate to just attend the session. But if you do the Endzone with us, at the end, you can do a screenshot about your working app. Send us the screenshot using a Google form we will share with you. And you can have this badge and you can share this badge on LinkedIn. We have overall more than 30 different badges, which are so many topics that are covered on this channel. But it's always better to be live with us, interact, and ask questions. Okay, so today we are building a clone of Google Goodreads. So I wanted to show you what does this clone look like. Okay, so it's an app called Better Reads, and you can search for some book title. Okay, and later on you will search the same book title as me. But for now, let me copy paste. So you search for books. in the database, search, get a few books that will match your request. If my laptop answer me, come on, my friend. Okay, and so you can view the book and say, oh, get the details of this book. And if it is a book that you are reading, you want to log in using your Google account, you will do that as well today. You log in, and now look at that. It's part of my books. Here I can say, oh, I start read this book today. I expect to be complete by the end of the week, and submit. And when you're done,
I wonder if my books are in there.
so yeah, there are I think it's 30 million books. Maybe I don't know if yours is there. Maybe I did not load the totality of the data set in my database today.
That's okay.
So there, to do so, we are using a database. We are using Spring Data, Spring Security, Spring Web, and so let's all together build this app. All right. Okay. So you saw what the app looked like, and when you have a new app to build, you need a methodology. Our goal here is to build a clone of Goodreads. So the purpose is to find, get, and share book you love with everyone, right? So in real time, in a single application, everyone in the world can use this app, and you can have a lot, high throughput, high volume of requests coming. So to implement that methodology we will use today is TOGAF. So TOGAF is just a way to help you check all the boxes when you implement a new app. So you start with the vision, then first the business architecture, what it's supposed to do, then do fine grain, go to the function that you should implement, switch to technology, how do we implement that, and finally the solution. So if I look at the business architecture, it's a web app. Based on the demo, you saw that you can do a search, find some books based on your search. You can also log in, see your books that you already read, and you can again search, sign in, and add one book in your library. And when you do so, you are specifying the start date, the end date, the ratio, and the status. Okay, this is what the app look like, kind of the business architecture. One step further, now if I show you what it looks like based on the demo you just saw, same screen, homepage with the search, and you can log in. Then search without login. Here you show the book and you are not logged in. Or you log in, this time with GitHub. So hopefully we will have time to implement login both with GitHub and Google with Google, which is cool, right? Because when you build apps, this is what you want your user to authenticate. They can still use email and password, but let's be honest, especially for mobile, now everybody will log with either GitHub or Google.
Yep, and single sign-on just makes things easier for everyone.
Totally. So what technical stack do we want to use? So obviously it's a Java workshop. So we will go with Java. So it's a web app, and we will use Spring. So Spring Web for the web UI, Spring Data to interact with the database, Spring Security to authenticate with Google and GitHub. We will use something called HOHO2. Even OpenID Connect, and the rendering the web will be Timeleaf. Question on the chat: does it use full text search? No, and I will explain that why in a minute. Okay. that's for the web app, and this is in the title of the workshop, so we did not lie to you. This is what we will do. So now, what about the database? Well, we will use Apache Cassandra. So you are on the DataStax developer channel. We are contributing to the Apache Cassandra product, and we are working to make Cassandra aware and make everyone aware of this great database. So it's a NoSQL distributed database. You want to install Cassandra on multiple nodes. There is no real sense on the single node. It's big data ready. If you need more throughput or more volume, simply add new nodes. It will scale linearly. It's famous for the read and write performance. It can scale very, very far. Like Apple stated that they do have 300,000 Cassandra nodes, and they have online 12 petabytes. That's crazy, right?
I know that's crazy. Yeah.
And it's not all up, right? It's not the end of the day queries. It's real time. Also, it's known to be self-filling and automated. Your data is replicated. If you lose any of the node, the database is still okay because your data is available on multiple nodes. It's an open source solution. It's platform agnostic. It's just a tarball you will unzip and install in any cloud you like or on your machine. Not Windows, but any machine, VM, whatever. And it's vendor independent. So there is no change for Cassandra to change the license anytime soon. On the contrary of others databases that had to change to protect themselves against the cloud vendors. Cassandra is not the
right,
case.
AGPL licenses, and yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yep. Cassandra doesn't have to do any of that.
Exactly. Okay, so we will use that database for today because we suspect that for the beta reads, which is a global distributed application, we want the data as close as possible to the user, and we can have users all across the world. Like Apple again did, everything starting with an I, seems to store some data on Cassandra. But Netflix also doing the same. Okay, so enough. That's the database we want to use, NoSQL. So now, what about the dataset? Where do I find all those books? There is a website called Open Library where you can find a dataset of millions of authors and books. So what we did for today, we download the dumps and we import the dumps in the database, okay, to see the book details and everything. But for the search, we were a little tricky. When you search in the user interface, you are still searching against Open Library. Why? Because in Open Library, you do have the full text search, whereas in Cassandra, it's not meant to be full text. On the contrary of Solar or Elasticsearch.
Yep.
And again, it's a workshop for developers, so we are not trying to sell you that database can do anything. We will show you what it's do and do well. All right. We told you you will not have to install Cassandra. So multiple strategy. We could have go the Docker route, but then when you use Docker, you still have to download the Docker image and start the Docker image. What about using database as a service in the cloud for free? And that's the DataStax platform called DataStax Astra, containing multiple services, the Cassandra database, a streaming engine, Pulsar, and all the tools and UI and libraries for you to help with the use of those technology. So this is why you see all these dots on screen. Once Cassandra or Pulsar are there are multiple ways to access it. But today, and it's a choice we made, we want to stick to the original way to interact with Cassandra. So let's use the good old Java Cassandra drivers. because this is the one that are used by Spring Data. But we could have picked APIs like gRPC, REST, document-oriented. So if for some reason you are a JavaScript developer and you say, maybe the drivers is not, new enough, and you want to go with the API route, be aware that it's a features of the DataStax platform that we will not cover today. And so following our TOGAF methodology, if I dig one step further, now it's the technical architecture. So the database, Cassandra with some tables here in the middle. Open library, we will dump the text file. We will do some data cleansing, data format to produce a CSV. And the CSV can be imported into Cassandra. So that's also part of the work you might have to do to migrate an existing system to Cassandra. You will have to format the data in a way to ease the bulk loading, because you will see that importing record per record, technically speaking, it's working, but it's quite slow. And for the web app, we wanted that to be used as a reference app. And if you have already log into the GitHub repo, you can see that there are a significant amount of fork of this repo. And the reason is the quality is pretty good, and it's using the Spring standard, the good way to build the Spring app, something you can use later in your work to leverage on and build your own apps. And I will really do my best to explain all the part of this app with you today. So to build this app or rebuild this app, we will go layer by layer, starting with the data and moving the layer one after the other. So we will have to start by initializing the database. Okay. So you might think, when I build an app, if you are familiar with relational database, first you design your entities, okay? Based on your entities, you design your schema, the joins, the primary keys, the foreign keys, many-to-many relationships, one-to-many relationships. And when you have that, you can create the object, the entity relationship schema, MQL, MDL, and based on that, you give that to the developer, and it is the developer to find out what are the good SQL queries, how to join the table together to match what the application needs to do. It's data first and application last, because the developers need to find out what are the good requests to do, eventually put some indexes and stuff to make that work. But the main goal is to have the data only once, and ensure some consistency.
Yep. No duplicate data, and no odd dependencies here and there between the entities. Yep, for sure.
In NoSQL, the pattern is reversed, and this is why I show you the business architecture first. What are the screens you need to implement? What would be the queries that need to happen under the hood to make that screen available? And based on the queries, you will build your tables. And if you need to have the same data on multiple screens, but accessed in different ways, you will probably have to duplicate the data. And that's the way of thinking of NoSQL. It's not a problem to duplicate the data as long as we are targeting performance. It's like we are doing the joins when we save, not the joins when we read.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
It's called denormalization, because there you will find tables with maybe a lot number of columns instead of doing the joins when you read. So it's different. How would you do that as a learner? Well, there is a methodology, and on academy.datastacks.com you would find some free courses, deep dive, to learn about Cassandra and how to build the data model. But today I wanted the session first to stick in 2 hours and to be practical. So I will just, if you wish, apply the methodology on this app. And I think it's will give you already a fairly understanding of what it is, okay? Okay, so that's the overall methodology. I prefer using this schema. So to build your model, you need 2 fundamental things. First is the conceptual data model. So you still need what are the entities, what are the attributes, how do I ensure unicity of this entity, how those entities interact with each other. So the ER diagram, entity relationship diagram in UML, it's still valid. So this one is good. You don't have to change it coming from relational. But secondly, you need the queries, because remember, you will have your table based on the queries that you need to make. And so if somebody asks you, oh, I have this Oracle or MySQL or SQL application that you need to move to Cassandra for performance reason, because it's well known that Cassandra can scale a lot, they will say, hey, how would you do that? Well, you will reuse the conceptual data model, but it's not enough. You will have to ask them, hey, what are the exact queries that has made against this model to build your tables. With those 2 inputs, you get the logical data model and get the physical data model. So you might think I'm moving fast in the slides. Again, I wanted the session to be interactive and you do stuff as well. The slides are on the GitHub repo. It's a PDF. You can come back and read that at your own pace, no problem. So in our Better Reads application, we are working with 3 entities: book, author, and user. And an author can write multiple books, and you as a user, once connected, you will also have you will read multiple books. So you have 1 too many user books, 1 too many author books, and some relationship written by, read, and as you can see, there are some attributes. Maybe one thing you might notice is some of those are double around here, like the covers. Well, it's because in Cassandra, you can have multi-valued attributes. So here in the table book, if you wish, a book can have multiple covers because it can have multiple editions, and you will have a list of cover part of the row in that book table. Cool, right? So
it's cool.
So I told you, oh, you cannot do joins when you read with Cassandra, but still, some one-to-many relationship can be done at the table level. If you if you have multiple covers for a book, this is what you do. Okay, that's our entities. What about the queries, which is the second part of the model, application workflow? Well, again, it's the same slide as before, but now you see some numbers. And we try to put some details on each query. So at the first row is the public path. You are not authenticated. And so the first query we will do is search books. It's Q2, and Q21 give me details from that book. And there is no user involved. You are in anonymous way, And so there is no point of having users information in those tables. The second row, the second line on screen is the authenticated path. So now Q1 is actually authentication. Then Q11 is show me the books from a user. And Q12 is put some details for a user and a book. So you might think in that final table, you will have all the information gathered. If I use the notation, the official notation to represent that, this is how it is. So you have one path authenticated, one path public, the different screens and the different queries. And now we have everything we need to build that model. Logical data model. Okay, moving on. I keep those slides for you as reference. With Cassandra, in a nutshell, one query is one table. And again, if you need the same data on multiple screens, you will duplicate the data on multiple tables. So Q21, so remember, Q21 was the public path. You want to get the detail of a book without a user. So here, it's a table called books by ID. You just want the detail of one book when you provided the identifier of that book. So K here mean partition key, which in that case ensure unicity of the record. Second table, book by user. So this time you are authenticated, you get your user ID. And the query will be give me all the books that this user have read. And so what you will put in your where clause is the user ID. And when something needs to be in the where clause and part of the filter, it needs to be part of the key of the table. So here I put the user ID. So as you can see, the K called the partition key is not enough this time to ensure unicity because you will have multiple books for one user. You need more columns. And those extra columns, part of the key, are called clustering column. This is why here you see a C. And they are used to do some inequality queries or to ensure unicity. So reading status would be to order the book on screen by reading status first. So what are the books that I already finished? What are the books that are in progress? What are the books that I did not start? And it was by design, this is how we decided to order those books on the screen by the reading status. And this is why it's used as first clustering column. Then TAMUUID, which here is the insertion date, if you wish. We want to get the latest first. And for some reason, if you insert two books for the same user at the same time, very unlikely, but nevertheless, you will go back here, find the book ID. So you notice that book ID is in those two tables, but there is no integrity constraint there. Okay, I will go a bit more faster on the latest table. So now with Q11, you are authenticated and you want to provide the details of that book, starting reading date and rating. So this is what you see here. And to access those records in the table, you need both a user ID and the book ID. Okay, and based on that, we are almost done, right? We already know what the table look like. We need to go to the physical data model. Think about, can we optimize? Can we join some column? because, for instance, I have a column which is an identifier, another column that is a timestamp. Maybe we can use the timestamp as an identifier, stuff like that. Try to reduce the number of fields, the number of tables, and also ask the question, hey, should I use the default rules, which is one table, one query, or two queries are similar enough that I can reuse the table? That's unlikely to happen, but sometimes it's happened. I know I'm moving fast, but again, to have these 12-hour courses for free on just Cassandra data modeling techniques and sample, please go to academy.datastax.com. Take the courses called DS220, and you know what? If you finish that courses and you provide us on Discord your email address you use in the academy, we will make sure you can also try the certification, because why not? You are with us in the middle of a workshop, so privilege for you. That would be cool to get certified on Cassandra. That skill is useful. More and more people will have more and more data, and guess what? Either it will not fit the existing relational database, or you will have to move the database in the cloud, and cloud is a distributed system, and relational databases are not at ease in the cloud, or do not scale as much as you want. Okay, long story short, this is what the physical data model look like. So with the book, I can have a list of author, a list of author names, and the cover ID, see, it's also a list. Okay, but you know what? We are already 30 minutes in that workshop, and I had quite some detail to share with you to go with this statement, which is the statement you need to create the tables in the database. So it's called SQL, Cassandra Query Language, close to SQL, but not exactly the same. You see that some attributes are not the same, some keys are not exactly the same. But with that, you can finally start with the Endzone portion of that. And to do so, let's together jump into Lab 1. Lab 1, part 1, is create the database, generate a token to access the database. And after that, we will load some data. So I will do that with you. So you can now do the step with me. All the instructions are on GitHub, step by step, as I show you. So here it is. It's really step by step. So I have, nothing special that I would do that you would not. So you can do it at your own pace. Okay. So first thing first, create an Astra account authenticated with either GitHub or Google. I will go with Google. And so, yeah, prerequisite for this session is having a Google account or GitHub account or Google account, because we are using tools that are free, but they will ask you your Google account to authenticate. But we are not using any of your information, of course. So here I'm logging to my Astra account. And as a user in Astra, you can have multiple workspace, workspace where to work. And at DataStax, during the workshop, we like to use DataStax Devs workshops, which is an empty organization. So right now, I'm like you. If you authenticated for the first time, you are like me, you have the same screen, and that's probably easier for you to follow what I'm doing. So what I need to do is go to settings and organization administration, generate token. So two ways to do it. either you go to organization settings if you are using the same user interface as me. So I will do it like that. I go here, I go to organization settings, token management, make it bigger, select a role. So the role we need to pick is called here organization administrator. And I will generate a token. So in this token, you see client ID, client secret token. For security reason, this token will never be shown to you again, because it's, you know, it is, and it will be the same later. You will see with GitHub and Google when you create client ID, client secret. Those are sensitive information, so they are shown to you once and then cannot be accessed. So good practice, please download your token details. Here I save my details. But what I can do as well is open a text file and copy my token using that in my text file. And why I'm doing that, moving that to a second screen, because I will reuse that token very quickly, right? So yeah, step one is what we wanted you to do. And if you look at the instruction, it's not exactly the same, because in the user interface we have a new UI. So if I enable that new user interface, it looks better. But this time, to create a token, you go to settings at the bottom left part of the screen. And here again, token management, select a role, organization administration, generate token. And here we have a second token. If you are watching the recording, and all the token that I'm using today will be immediately deleted. So do not try to pause the video and copy that. It's not working anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Our security people have been on top of this for that one.
Yeah, security people are, you know, exactly on top of it. And voila. So you have your Astra environment declared, and you have a token. And that's enough to start working with the environment, because instead of clicking the button, we will use a command line interface to generate what needs to be generated for us. Maybe before moving on, how are you doing? So in the chat, can you tell me that
Yeah, I've been trying to help Vibor in the with getting a good response back from Astra CLI. I think he's getting ahead of us a little bit, but you know, hopefully we'll get to the bottom of that. It looks like his database is up though, from what I can tell.
Okay, so yeah, it's a bit ahead of us, but we are moving there very, very fast. So I will go back in slides mode, not for too long, I promise. Now that you are already your hands on the keyboard, you want you to stay there. So I promise the pause will be short. Okay, moving on to here, data loading. So we just design what are the table we need to create. But how would you populate those tables? If I download the data from Open Library, I download the data dumps. Those are 7 to 11 gigabytes, and those are text files. It's not so easy to import. So a first attempt was to create some Java code that will read those text files, line one after the other, build an object, save the object in the database, which is working, right? There is nothing wrong about that. Just read a line, get the entity, save the entity in the database.
Yep, simple.
Exactly. And if you want to get the book by the IDs, you can create a table book by ID. So far, so good. And you are doing a little Java code that will use author dump file, book dump file, do the little magic and save the book. This code is there for there. It's a unit test. But spoiler alert, we are not asking you to run that test, because if I start to run that test, you will realize that this approach, even if it's working, take a while. So the app is starting, the app is loading, connecting to the database, and here I go, hopefully. Okay, connection is initialized. Here I go. And the batch starting. It's working, right? I'm using a text row. I'm creating an author and I'm saving to the database. And on top of it, I'm loading first the author and then the books. And I'm doing that. But if you saw that and you feel, even if you do 2, 3, 5 rows per second, how much time do you need to import the file? Because those files are 260 million books. So I do the count, I do the benchmark with that, and you would need almost 1 year, 280 days to import the book dataset, and it will take 10 days to import the author dataset. Can we do better?
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Can we do better? Yes, we can.
I think so.
And we will do better. I agree, we do not want to optimize too soon, right? But here it feels like this approach, it's not what we want. What we want to use is a bulk loader, something that will take a static file and that will load everything in a table. That tool exists. It's called DataStax Bulk. Okay, it's called DataStax, but it's a free open source tool that you can pick to load the data. And that tool needs a CSV file to import all your data. So what I did previously, to save you some time, I import the author and the books in different tables using DSBulk. And then I export, I did the joins to have in one table the book info and the author info. Because, as by default, it's 2 different dump. So it's 2 different data sets, and I need them in the same table. So if you wish, I had to parse all the author, put that in memory, and start reading the books and enriching the book record with the author each time, and save in the table. So it took a while, and I had something. Finally, I produced a CSV file that I share with you today, and this is this file that you will load in your database. So this is what I did: load all the author, put that in memory is the hash map, load the books, 13 GB, parse the books, and produce this CSV. And that CSV you will use to load in the database. So the data set we will use is 500,000 books. We did not put the whole data set because that was not the point of today. You will fill your database and use some credit for nothing. Astra is free up to 80 million queries a month, and it's free forever. So every month the credit is refreshed. So for today, 500,000 is more than enough to illustrate that using DSBulk is way faster. Okay, I promised it was short with the slide, and Now we will take a bit more time on the Endzone portion. So here we go. Endzone ends back to the keyboard. Switching. Here we go. So this is the state we were when we stopped. I have my Astra database over here. I have my demo running locally, but we don't care. Let's remove that tab. So 1.3, I will right click and open in a new tab. It will start our Git pod environment. Remember, this is our IDE available for free in the cloud. It will take maybe 1 minute to start. In that IDE, you already also have Java installed, Docker, Maven, but also Python, Go, PHP. That tool is impressive. There are everything installed already for you. And so then you don't have to install Java, you don't have to install Maven, everything is ready for you. You can say Java -- version, here it is, Maven -version, -v.
And we also give you Astra CLI, that's out there too.
Yeah, exactly. And there, what we want to do with this tool is first connect to, let me go back here. Just remove this pop-up. So this platform, Astra, also offer a range of technical APIs, and we will use those technical APIs to create what we need instead of using the user interface. But everything we do to the CLI could also be done in the user interface. Let me close all that are in the way. I will remove that and make it big enough. Okay, so let me. Okay, all right. Okay, big enough. When you start this environment, there is a possibility for us to add some commands to install what needs to be installed. So we install for you the CLI. So if you do Astra -- version, you will see that or just Astra, you will see that you have the CLI installed and ready for you, other 2.1. So the first thing we need to do with this CLI is configuration. We need to connect these environments with the database we just created. And to do so, we will use the command Astra setup. Okay. There, it asks me to provide my token. So remember the token I put here in the text file. Here it is. I will copy my token and put it there. I will allow. Yeah, the first time you paste something in Gitpod, you can have this security warning, just validate and allow. Okay.
Yeah, Gitpod does a little bit of that. It'll say the same thing when it tries to open up like the default web page too. You'll have to like allow that, but yeah.
Exactly. For security reason.
Yep,
okay.
That's right. That's right.
Now it's done. I mean, it sounds magic, but just this token is enough to set up the connectivity between these and the database. Because now I can say Astra user list and see that I'm in the organization. I see that all these data stacks guy are part of the organization. But if I want to maybe get more information, I say Astra org for my organization and see I'm connected to the DataStax dev workshop, the one that we were using here from the beginning, right? Because I just provide the token, so now it's there. There, if I want to see what are the database running, for now it's empty. That's expected, right? Nothing is started. And what we want to do to start is create a database called workshops with the S. and we will use a key space. So a key space is really like an Oracle schema. In a single Cassandra database, you can have multiple key spaces. So here I'm copy and paste and let the CLI do its job, starting the database and give me back the prompt when everything is ready. You can ask the CLI to do everything asynchronously, but it's better to do like this way. Also,
I agree.
you need to realize that you are building a 3 nodes database, so it can take a bit of time.
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you're having any issues with this, and we'll do our best to help you out here.
And so, you know, I can probably go back to the user interface, refresh the user interface, and you see that this workshop database is there and actually pending. And I think the timeout for that command is like 5 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
I
suppose you, well, I was going to say maybe you could open up another terminal window and run like a AstraDB list. And
I can also, you know, do kill this one and redo AstraDB list. It will show me at pending, right? It's not a problem. It's just that now,
right, it's just waiting for response. Yeah.
But now I need to look at that. Now it's active. See? And if I go here, it has switched to active. We have a database available for free. Okay. Now it's time to move on. The database is running. Well, we need to create the tables. I explained the methodology for the data model. Let's just create let's create the table. So a couple of commands we put you show me the status. Yeah, it's active. Show me the details of the database. You will get, hey, so the database is active. It's running in GCP. So when you create a database in Astra, you can choose whether GCP, Azure, or AWS. But for the Azure and AWS region, you need to provide a credit card. So let's use the free one, which is GCP. And when you use the CLI by default, it's a free one. So we didn't have to think about it. But if you are already using AWS or you are using already Azure, when you create a database, this is a question that has been asked to you. Which cloud and where are you located? The region is the idea is always to get you as close as possible. Get your data as close as possible to you for a performant database.
That's a great idea to make the free regions the default on that. When did you do that, Cedric? That had to be recent, huh?
That CLI keep improving under the hood, right? Because
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Spoiler alert! I'm the one who created that tool in particular. So.
No, but that's good. That takes out a lot of the guesswork, especially when we have new people and we're trying to direct them to the right regions. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, watch AstraDB list. Yeah, watch is totally the command that will be done. Okay, so the database there. Let's move on. We need to create some table. So to interact with Cassandra, there is a tool called SQLSH, Cassandra Query Language Shell. This time that's Aaron who contributed to that tool.
I did. That's right.
So yeah, you are in good hands with both of us. So the CLI will actually download this solution once needed, set up the solution and connect. And as you can see right now, it's empty. what I will do is import the data or create the table, sorry, by importing this schema.ddl. So if you look here in the file system, in dataset, here there is a file with the instruction to create the tables. Okay, so this is the one we will execute. So 1, 2, 3, 4 table expected. So let me close that, put the terminal in big again, because hey, this is what matter, and I run this command. Okay, nice. Now if I want to describe my table again, I should have my tables. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. We are good.
Excellent.
Great. Maybe I should pause here and wait in the chat to tell me that if you can keep up, for those who want to do the steps with me.
Yeah, it looks like you know, Vibor was the one who was having trouble before, but he's okay as long as he runs it in GitPod, as opposed to, I'm guessing the other alternative was on his local. So yeah, I almost wonder if you know, maybe the keys aren't the same. Yeah, I don't know. It might be worth looking at that, but yeah. Anyway, he says it's working now.
Okay, nice. Almost done with the database after 1 hour. But you know, at least you got the methodology. It's not coming out of nowhere. So the table are there. Now we need same token using both.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, to know which token are in use, you can do Astra config list, just to see that, hey, I'm using DataStax Dev Workshop. And if you want to double check on the token, you can do Astra config get default, and it will show you exactly the token you are using. You know, expert moment, you know, for Vibor maybe to see if it's working. Okay, so now what about the data? As I told you, here we have some big files. Okay, open anyway. Let's see if it can open it. Yeah, it opened that big CSV file, and this is what we want in the database. And we will use DS bulk, as I explained before. But the nice thing with the CLI is the CLI will download DS bulk and set up DS bulk for you to work with your instance. So here, if I want to see what the CSV look like, I can do a head. So here you see I do have this book by ID table there. How many rows? Well, if I count the rows for this first file, yeah, it's about 250k rows, a bunch. And so if we want to import, we can use 1.7.c, which is AstraDB load. So load in the database workshop, in the key space beta reads, in the table book by ID that we just created. You don't care about the error number, and this is the file you need to import. Spoiler alert again, you will have about 183 errors. I've not gotten into the file that much to see why you see those errors. Maybe we are eating some special character things. It was good enough for the demo. And here, look at the throughput. Before, it was 3 per second. And it was my laptop and my code limiting the throughput. Here, I can reach 2000 read per second, and this time this is Astra that having a threshold, because I'm again on a free instance, I have X transaction per second available. But if I pay for my instance, that limit is removed, and I can easily multiply this throughput by 50. Now the limit is removed. Yeah, thank you, Vibor. Great that you enjoyed. I think it's a lot of slide in the beginning, but it's worth it because then you populate the database very quickly. And here it is. I'm done for the first file, and I will do the same for the second one. Nothing really to say much. It's same principle with the second file. And this time it's also 200 and 1,000 rows. Why did I split those CSVs? Or maybe it's easier to commit on GitHub, right? Because if I commit file too big, GitHub is not happy. It's getting even better. Look at that. I'm about 2,600, 2,700 row per second.
Yeah, getting there. Melroy, you absolutely can get Astra CLI using Brew.
Yeah, so it's really it's Kirsten just provided, but I think today it's broken for some reason, so I really need to fix Brew. But yeah, there is a Brew for that, of course. But yeah, I do have a problem with the path and the latest Brew. So yeah, give me just a couple of days to fix Brew, but yeah, it's there. Yeah, so of course I was tempting to have Astra, Brew install Astra. Now, and Aaron got the same issue before. You need to know that to be able to post in the public Brew repository, your code needs to be famous. You need to have 100 stars on GitHub and 70 forks and a lot of stuff. And as long as I don't have this credibility, I cannot register my formula as Brew install Astra. But hey, if you want to give me a hand, everybody go to github.com/datastack/Astra
Go to the repo
CLI
and star it, watch it, and fork it.
yeah,
Yep.
watch it, fork it, give me a star. And the more star I get there, the better I can register my formula as Brew install Astra.
Yeah, and then Melroy, you'll be able to run Brew install all you want after that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm with you. I really enjoy the Brew install.
It looks like Sandria is having an issue with a database still in a pending status.
Oh, it can take a bit of time.
Yeah.
So I've imported both of the file. The table is book by ID, so I can probably just during the time you are importing, just do Astra DB SQLSH workshops. Because this time, because I did not provide any SQL command or SQL file, I will enter interactive mode. So here I can say describe tables. I should see all the table for all the key space. We want to use better reads, and I want to see what is the book by ID table. Let's see, book by ID, but you know what? We know there is 500,000 stuff there, so let's limit 5, okay. What did I do? Select star, yeah. The issue is in between the keyboard and the chair. Okay, here we go.
That's funny. Hubcac, yeah. Hey, and Vibor liked the same feature that I did. Remember I messaged you yesterday? I'm like, create.env, that's awesome. Yeah, he just basically said the same thing. Yeah. See, Cedric, you're just right in tune with what everybody needs there.
See, seems like you know, I eat my own dog food, and so
Right. There you go.
yeah. Okay. All right. The database is ready. Now let's dig into the application. Okay. So we are working with a Java application. It's a Maven application. If I open the POM, so it's Better Reads Web App. Here it is. And if you look at the POM, here we are using Java 11 and Spring Boot 2.5. This repo is not yet updated to Spring Boot 3. Again, coming soon. But as of now, it's still Java 11 2.x. We are using Spring Boot starters. So for security, for the view, having a user interface without React, using some Spring and UI extra magic, like the login button, OO2 client, Spring Data Cassandra, we are connecting to Cassandra, Webflux, I will explain in a minute, WebTool, and a lot of magic. So this is the POM. But I want to tell you a few words on how a Java application is supposed to connect to Cassandra. Because today it's a Spring Boot app, but if I ask you to do it with Quarkus, Micronaut, Active Profile, or whatever, you know, how do you do? And it's similar. So that deserves a bit of attention. Okay, right. Sundarya has got an active database. So you will have time to catch up because I'm opening a bit of slide here.
That's excellent. Yeah.
So if I go back to the architecture, previously of the workshop, I downloaded dump on Open Library. I transform the text file, do some CSV, and we all together import those CSV in Cassandra. I also tell you that we are using a Spring Boot app, and we have created a Spring Boot app with start.spring.io actually, and you see what the POM look like. For the app to connect to Cassandra, we will use the Java Cassandra drivers. It's a library that is used by Spring, Quarkus, Micronaut, and any Java application that connect to Cassandra. And maybe there are some old Java drivers, but I think now, 99% in use is the DataStax one. It's open source. Yep. And what do you expect from a drivers? It's like a JDBC drivers. You expect that thing to connect you to the database, to speak the technical binary language with the database, and expose you some interfaces easy enough to connect, execute some queries, and parse the result. I mean, this is all you ask. And if on top of it, you can do paging, else check, and you don't even you don't even need to think about, hey, what if one node goes down? how do I fall back to the remaining nodes? Well, the driver is clever enough to do the else check and the connection pooling, retry, and load balancing policies. So before, when I show you Cassandra with a lot of nodes, I told you the data is replicated. If I lose a node, the data is still working. Well, the drivers are clever enough. If you lose one node, there is nothing to do. The driver will use the remaining nodes and start executing queries there.
Yep, you should never notice that.
Yeah, so it's pretty powerful drivers. But here we are using AstraDB, right? And if you are intermediate to advanced level, you might think, hey, so you guys probably did not expose a binary port over internet, and you were right. For security reason, we cannot really open any binary socket there and there. So we need, there are some proxy there and a load balancer. So to connect to to connect to Cassandra local, you just need to provide the IP of a node. It will find out what are all the nodes in the cluster and do the magic for you. But because it's here in the cloud, you need to a little bit more security. You need to open a tunnel, two-way TLS connection between you and Astra. And this is where finally you can still do the load balancing, else check, and rebalance and retry policy. And it's actually a TCP connection, and for the routing it's using a protocol called SNI. Now you know everything. But long story short, to connect to this cloud system, you need a zip file, and in the zip that we call a secure bundle, and in this zip file you will have all the certificate needed to open a two-way TLS connection. But do not worry, we have tools and solution and framework to help you initiate that connection. Okay, so the drivers connect to the database. Okay, so far so good, easy.
Yep, easy stuff.
Easy stuff. But you as a Spring developer, you may never have heard about the Cassandra drivers. You are using a layer on top of it, providing the Spring called Spring Data. The idea of Spring Data is having a repository with the traditional method: save an entity, find all the entities, find an entity by its ID, search from entities based on criteria. And this repository interface has been then implemented for multiple technology. You have Spring Data GPA for relational, Spring Data Redis, Spring Data Cassandra, Spring Data Elasticsearch, Spring Data, and a lot of that. Now, it's working, it's powerful, it's great. Now, even without starting giving you the details, you need to understand that because it's an abstraction on top of everything, you cannot do everything at Spring Data level, because it's like a converging effort to have the more abstract function as possible. But when you need to dig into details and do some fine-grained stuff, you need to go back to drivers. And it would be the same with the Quarkus session or Micronaut Cassandra. So Spring Data working as an interface, doing the object mapping for you. You create an object, you annotate the object matching the column in your table, and it's magic. So if I show you a little bit of code, because I cannot wait to show you some code, let's say the book by ID table that we had before. So here I first create my book by ID object. I say, okay, it's going to the table book by ID over here. And here is the column, book name, book description, publish date, and I'm doing the mapping on the column name to the Java attribute name, and I just provide the type. And this object is really now a record of my table. And I create another interface called book repository, extending Cassandra repository, where I provide what is the object, what is this primary key, and here is just an identifier. Okay, and with that, look at that. It's empty, right? It's totally empty. There is nothing in there. But when I want to use this book repository, for instance, it's the controller. So here the controller is a view controller. It's coding for the book details. And when you connect to that page using the book and the book ID, it will use the book repository and say find by ID. So if I connect to the URL, and we will start the app very soon, if I go to /book/book ID, under the hood, I'm using the repo find by ID, providing the book ID, connecting to Cassandra for us. It's so easy. The only thing you have to do is create an object, map the object with the database, and wow. It also can create the schema for us. So in the configuration file, here there is some Spring Data keys that you can say, hey, if you say create if not exist, when the application starts, it will create the object. So the SQL script that we executed before, to be honest, we did not need it. But it's not a good practice to let Spring Data create the object for you, because you can, it will work for development environment for sure, but there are some settings at the table creation levels that you want to delegate to your admin operators SRE. Some technical features, something called like the compaction strategy, the default TTL, and some parameters that might change depending on the environment you are. And I always advise people to create their SQL, that script to create the table and make it validated by a SRE before going into production. It's a real danger to use Spring Data for that. It's powerful and sometimes, to be honest, too powerful, because you know it's not providing all the details.
Yeah, that's a great point, Cedric. That yeah, a lot of the times when I see folks having a hard time with putting schema out into a cluster, it's because they're trying to do it from within inside an application. So yeah, I completely agree that yeah, if you do that outside of that, you know, kind of in batch on your own, you know, have your SRE or DBRE look at it and do it, you know, that's a happier path.
Yeah, totally. Also here on this slide, and I stay a few minutes on this slide on purpose, there is something in red here. When you create a repo, when you test it, the first method you try is find all or select star from a table, and that's human because this method is the one that does not need any parameters, and this is the one you want to do, and you do that in development, happy path, because you just created the table, you just created the schema, you are doing in dev, super happy about it. But remember, Cassandra has been designed to save a massive amount of data. And find all is really like doing select star from a table. So best case scenario, you will end up in a timeout because it makes too much time to answer. Worst case scenario, you blow out of memory because you asked for 3 million rows in your memory. So please avoid find all in your code. It will even be, you know, in my opinion, we would even, you know, make a warning in the IDE if you are using that. Second part in red is allow filtering. So I explained about the methodology of how to build a good data model with Cassandra. You shape your table based on your query. What is in your workload should be your key. You got it, right? But sometimes the business come back with a new need, a new request on the same data set. And it's super tempting to reuse the same bin and the same repository to execute another query, just changing the workloads. And Cassandra, by design, will tell you, whoa, you are doing a select on something that is not the key. And for that to work, you need to add these allow filtering keywords, and then Cassandra will then be allowed, as the name stated, to go and look for your data on every single node of your cluster. This is what we call a full scan cluster. Again, working super good in dev, but what is production with 1,000 nodes, this request can take minutes maybe. So because Spring Data is, hey, this is an object, I use a repo, it will generate my tables, but I don't care, and I will use the code. You are attempting to reuse the same bin for multiple queries. You hit the limit and you allow filtering, but allow filtering is really, really a bad practice. So bad practice that in the latest version of Cassandra 4.1, you can disable allow filtering as a whole, called a guardrail. So be careful. So what do you need to do then if the business comes with another need on the same data? You create another bin, which could be exactly the same as before, but it's not pointing to the same table. And the key is probably not the same. And this is how things work. Okay, a bit of time there, but you know, we both answering a lot of questions on Stack Overflow regarding Cassandra drivers and Spring Data. And those are coming back very frequently. Okay, so Spring Data leveraging the drivers. We're good with that. Okay, looking at the time, and then we can look more at more code. I told you that to do the search, I'm using an HTTP API in Open Library solution. So you might ask, what is the good way to invoke an HTTP endpoint in the Spring ecosystem? We used to have REST template as part of Spring Web, but now it's deprecated. And I think, to be honest, it's now deprecated for 2 years, replaced by Web Client.
Mhm.
And you might think, yeah, but Spring Web Client is part of the reactive part of Spring. And should you use that or stick to REST template? And now it has been discussed in many ways on blog posts. It's a no-brainer move to the Web Client, because the Web Client offers you some asynchronous and non-blocking code, and it's implemented especially the client back pressure. So if your client cannot keep up with the answer, the client can slow down for you to digest the flow of data, incoming data. So yeah, even if it's written reactive in the name, or you know it's reactive, that's really, really what the Spring team wants you to do. And so for connecting to Open Library, we are using the Web Client, and that's part of the search. So if I looking again at the code and try to see for the search, so the search controller, okay, answering on /search, will actually use a web client interacting with the REST Open Library endpoint and doing the full text search. So before we had a question that, hey, did you implement a full search? Cassandra is not meant to do full search. So To have the capability, I'm invoking the just public open library API because we're supposed to have a copy of the dataset. And here you have a sample to use the web client, and it will return a mono. So a mono is the equivalent of a computation future in the asynchronous world. But here, everything we do is synchronous because we are using Spring Web. So to make the call blocking, I simply add .block. So it's not a problem to mix match both now. It used to be, it used to be
problematic. Just to warn
problematic.
against that, yeah.
It used to be problematic, like anything that's blocking in your app, if there is reactive in there, will make Spring fail. But they changed that because the web client is so useful that you still want to leverage it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And here then it's more, modern Java. Not so modern. And when I'm looking at that code, I say, oh, I could have done better. But still you stream on the result, you map, and you in the end you simply populate the object in the view and return the object in the view.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, now it's time for you to start the app. Come on. So moving back here, this time on GitHub, because I want to be exactly in the same position as you. Okay, so now starting with big 2, application setup. So with the Astra CLI, we have used a token, we have used a database ID, we have used a couple of things under the hood. If you do AstraDB list, you might see that your database got an identifier, got a region, you also have the token. All those attributes need to be the input of your Java application. And you remember, we also need the cloud secure bundle, that zip file that eventually you could download from the Astra user interface. But we have the CLI, so we have better things to do. So first, if you wanted just the secure bundle, you say AstraDB download secure bundle workshops -f scb.zip. So here what I'm saying is, oh, you need the cloud secure bundle. Hey, download the cloud secure bundle. And here is it. It's about 12K and it can be downloaded as simple as that. And could be very handy if you are not using the same stack as us. Really easy to do it. But we are in Spring. And if I open the POM file again, let me find the POM, you see that we are using something called Astra Spring Boot Starter. So engineering team has been up to create a starter. So a starter in Spring Boot is really something that, based on things that has been found in the class path, will create some beans for you. This is what the Spring Boot Starter Security is doing, Spring Boot Timeleaf is doing. Based on what in the class path, it will instantiate bin for you that you can use in your app. Same thing for Spring Boot Starter. If you go to the repo and open the application.yaml, you will see a bunch of keys. So the Spring keys, as stated before, so Spring application, the name, Spring data. We will come back to Spring security in a moment. And also here you have some keys for Astra. And it's coming from the Astra Spring Boot Starter. And here you can ask the Spring Boot Starter to download the SCB for you. It will download the SCB, putting in a temporary file, wire the project to your code, and it's working. And for these keys, so you need a token, you need a database ID, you need a region. Well, here it is set up to use environment variables. So how to create those environment variables? Well, again, we did some stuff for you. So if I find back my terminal, where is my terminal? Where are you? Terminal. Here it is. Okay, here are my terminals. I can say, oh, I need to use that database called workshop. So AstraDB create.env. So .env is the file with variable that you can use in your app. .env workshops. And I think I want to specify that I want to use better reads because eventually you can have multiple key space in your app. So let's see. And it will create a .env file which look like this, and the token, the API endpoint, and all settings are there. And because they are there, you can simply what we call source the file. And when we source the file, I don't know how to copy paste now. If you source the file, all those keys will be part of the environment variables. And when I do env, I list all the environment and I grep, and you see here in red that now all those keys are available. So when I start the app, it will use all those variables as input, set up application.yaml using the starter, and voila, it should work like that. You didn't have to code. Everything has been set up. You didn't have to change the config file because of the CLI. So now, finger cross. That's a nice way to set it, and say Maven Spring Boot run. Here we go. And I got a nice build fail. So let's see why. Okay, let me open that terminal and see what's wrong with it. No plugin found, Spring Boot. Oh yeah, it's blah 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 blah. I show you that Spring dash boot. Well, it should be there, right? Spring boot run. And oh, look at that. I'm not in the proper folder.
Well, that would do it. Yes.
I'm still at the root of the repo, and my web app is called Better Reads.
Yeah.
You know, it could have totally me fat finger thing. You know, once in the proper folder, and because you follow the steps at home and I do not, you will make it work without any issue.
I've done that before too. Yeah.
I'm a bit off-road here. Okay, so it's starting. It should open a new tab. Oh yeah, I got a warning that no, allow the pop-up. Okay, if it's not happy, I'm going to port and I clicking the first link. Okay, so the app open right now. Okay, here we go. And here I can look for the same title as before. I'd like to copy that. And here I'm connecting to Open Library with the HTTP. Look at that. It's so much faster than my laptop. Gitpod is amazing. And I can here click on View Books, and here it is. But once there, I cannot go forward. I cannot right now log in to GitHub. I get this ugly error, and login via get this ugly error. So now comes the time to go with Spring Security, and it will be more, the debug mode rather than you doing the Endzone, it can be tricky to set up Google Cloud and GitHub. But hey, long story short, look at what I'm doing. So I'm going to GCP, so the Google Cloud Console here, Google Cloud Platform, and you can create an account for free again. So nothing to pay in that workshop. So what you can do is create a new project. Live Better Reads. Okay, let's do Live Better Reads, and you create your app. Okay, so the project is creating. I could have called it Better Reads Demo App. So I select my project. Okay, it's a totally new project, empty, and here I am, Live Better Reads. So in this empty project, because I want to use Google Authentication, I will work through the API. So I will go to API and Services. Okay, and there I will enable APIs. So here I'm clicking on Enable API, but look at that. It's really a step by step here. Okay, so here I'm looking for API. I'm looking for Gmail, Gmail API, and Google Analytics. But I don't think you need both, but it's okay to do both as explained here.
Yep.
So really I'm moving fast, but it's really clicking exactly how it's setting here. I selected the API, and this is my output. Yeah, so far so good. And I'm doing the same with Google Analytics. So I'm going back here, I'm enabling here Google Analytics API. Okay, finding Google Analytics API, enabling Google Analytics API. And here it is. So now I have an empty project with those two APIs enabled. What do I do next? Well, I will click on OAuth consent screen. So this is where the Spring Security magic happen. You want to allow some external folks to authenticate to your app. So Better Reads will be the app we want to authenticate. So here I'm going to external and I say create. So app name, Live Better Reads. Support email, let's put mine. Application logo, I don't need it. Application domain, I don't need it. And I can simply, I again need an email address. But should not be too difficult. Save and continue. Okay, add or remove scope. I will take the three first scope, which are the authentication, user info email, user info profile, and OpenID. We are in an OpenID flow. I update. I save and continue. I can save and continue, and summary. Okay, back to dashboard. Okay, I just filled the consent flow, and now I need credential, user and password. I will go to credentials over here. So 2.3.h, and I will create credentials. It's a OAuth credentials client ID. So it's a web app, as stated. Name web client, I would say Gitpod, like that. And okay, so now is really where you need to slow down, take a deep breath, and populate properly. So there are two URL to provide. The first is called JavaScript origin, where the requests are coming from. The request is coming from Gitpod here. What is the URL? The URL is actually this one, the one we are using right now, right? This is where the request coming from when we try to log in. So how do we get this URL? So we can copy paste from the here, but there is a handy command line that you can use opening a new terminal, which is gp URL 8080. Why? Because the app is running on 8080. And here this is what you need to provide as origin. This is where the request is coming from. Okay. The second is, okay, you will open a pop-up when Google will ask you for your authentication. If the authentication is correct, what we call the principal, so the username and the context stated that the user authentication is valid, need to be redirected to the app.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a redirect URL. And this one, the way we configure the app using Spring Security is our app /login 002 code Google. But here I give you a little command to execute to get exactly what needs to be populated. And if you pay attention, just, passing by, the first URL is HTTPS and the second URL is HTTP. So no need to tell you it took a while to debug. Okay,
yeah.
and once this work is done, I can actually provide client ID and client secret. So client ID. So to populate those, I'm opening application.com.yaml, which is the file where everything happened. And here I can populate client ID. Oh, it seems like I committed my client ID, client secret before. So, that's totally on me. No problem. Next time
I wasn't going to
I'll
say
make sure it's
anything
not there.
live, but
Yeah. And client secret. Here it is. Okay. Now that this work is done, maybe I would restart the app. Yeah, just to be sure. But if I'm not mistaken, now we can authenticate with Google. And it will ask for an app called, what's the name? Lives Better Reads. Okay, let's see. Okay, the app is starting. We know that. And now I try to log in with Google. Oh yeah, so seems he's happy. I'm authenticating, and look at that. So it worked. Yeah. So
yay.
Cool. I'm authenticated with Google, using that. And for GitHub, same principle, but now you going to your GitHub account, you create a OAuth2 application. So github.com. Okay. Here I go. So yeah. github.com. All right. 2.4. So here, going in my organizations, looking for OAuth developer settings at the very bottom, OAuth apps, and see that I already have one. I can create a new one, but I can also reuse that one. Okay, to be honest. Let's create a new one. Live Better Reads.
Yep.
Okay, the home page is that. Okay, it's not started yet, but we know it's stopped. Okay, so here, this is the homepage URL, blah, blah, blah. And the callback URL, if you go here, see it's GP URL, blah, blah, same as before, but /login /OAuth2 /code /GitHub, and this time again it's HTTP, not HTTPS. Did I provide a code for that? Maybe I should. So let's see. Okay. All right. Register app. So far so good. Update new logo. You know what? I can still put my little guy here. All right. And now let's create a new client ID, client secret. here it is. So my client ID is that. GitHub client ID. And my client secret is that. Client secret. I save. I go. I start my app. And finger crossed, I can also now authenticate with GitHub. And it's really some settings at GitHub and Google level, and less in the app. Even if in the app, I will show you how to do it. So I'm already signed in. Why? Because Google authentication, I've put some cookie in my browser. So I will log out. And now I will try to log in again, but this time with GitHub. So I will connect with GitHub, and look at that. So now I have my little guy who wants to let me connect. So live better reads, and I authorized. And this time I'm authenticated, but on GitHub. So cool. And
That is cool.
as a matter of fact, because I'm used the same email address on GitHub and Google, if I authenticate with one and put some books and then authenticate with the others, I find my books.
They should match up. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's settings. But what about the code? What about your code? Well, we use we in the POM we use Spring Boot Starter Security. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing, we created a bin called Security Adapter. Almost done. Yeah. 5 minutes and we're going to the game. So Security Adapter, which is a web security adapter, where this is exactly, you say, okay, so anything should be authenticated. This is the so with OAuth2, and you put the OAuth2 library there to make that happen. So security adapter. So we saw the drivers, Spring Data, the controllers, Spring Web Client, Spring Security. The last piece we did not touch at all was the web UI. So when you create a web UI with Spring, you use the controller. For those, we saw what the controller look like. So you just say it's a controller and not a REST controller. You still provide the mapping like it was a REST API, but it's instead of returning an object, you are returning just a string. The string is the name of the view where you want to go. There is a view template engine powered by TimeLeaf. And if you look in the tree in your project, you can go to templates, and here you will see some HTML file exactly matching the string return. So here I return string book. So if I open the book.html over here, you see this is how it's populated. This is how the view is rendered. So remember, in the book controller, we populated an object called user books. So we should find in the view something to loop over this variable and display what are the books. So here in the form, there is a form here to add some books, but I also probably have here, what is the name of that thing? Let me find out. Where is that guy? So here it is. Userbook.startDate, userbook.completeDate. Here it is. Oh, and by the way, to authenticate, here you come back with OAuth2 authorization GitHub and OAuth2 authorization Google. And so you invoke request with your control, with your repository. You inject the repository in the controller. You get some information from the data source, and you populate a bin, and the bin will be in the model. Once it is in the model, the view can render anything in the model. This is how you pass parameters in between the backend and the view. Last piece of the UI that I have not discussed is in each view, you can reuse some part of the screen. It's like a React component. So in Spring Boot Timeleaf, it's called fragment. And so in each page, you saw at each time, if I log in with GitHub, okay, let's go. If I log in, first I got the header, then I got the search bar, and then I get something else. So the header and the search bar are two fragments of my app. And if I show here, I do have the navbar fragment and the search panel fragment. And if you look at component main, so here it is, and look for a fragment, here you see how the object can be reused. So I was aware of this mechanism before React. Lately, I also learned React, and I can totally do the match and correlation. Fragment are kind of React components. Okay. 5 minutes left. We cover a lot. I told you in the beginning that it was a lot of content, and that I would speed up in the end. But at least you have the code, all the explanation, and you can make this app working on your laptop. If I going back to slide, not much to say. We explain you the Timeleaf, the Spring MVC, Spring security. We connected to GitHub and Google, and it made more sense to show that everything in one go instead of going back to slide. So what's remaining is let's have some little bit of fun if you want on the last 5 minutes. We will play a little game. If you don't want to play the game right away, remember, if you want to get the badge on LinkedIn, go to the very bottom of the README, follow the steps, which is just doing a screenshot of your running app. And also we told you we want to make Cassandra famous, and next month, March 14th, there is a Cassandra forward where the Cassandra project member will talk about everything what's new, and there we will have even such a famous speaker than Aaron will be there as well.
Oh, that's funny. No, I'm not famous.
You are. So here is the link, dts6.io/Cassandra-forward-meetup. Yeah, please register. We need to, to be very, we need to have a lot of people there. But with that, okay, let's play the little game with 5 questions before closing for today. And so to play the little game, go back to the tab you opened in the very beginning called Menti. Enter the code 37934201. So I see that 12 people are there ready to play with us. I think I only have 5 questions. It will be quick, but still, it's a good way to see your name on screen and be famous.
Yeah, I'll trigger Menti through Nightbot so that can chat too.
Yeah, I can also show back the QR code. I don't think we are hiding the QR code, so. Okay, don't want to wait for too much. Let's be on time and let's play.
Yep, sounds good.
So, question 1. What was the most used framework today?
Answer faster to get more points.
Yes, exactly. It was all about Java. I was blinking, I don't know. So funny. React, and I talk about React like the 5 last minutes, but it was to trick everyone and just put some spotlight on those who really attend the whole session. So let's see. Do we have a leaderboard? Okay, look at that. So Joao Pava was the fastest. Ferran Obiol Balaguer second. Constant learner. Constant learner, you know what? This guy will keep rising and rising with a name like that.
Yep. We see him all the time. Yep.
All right. Question number 2. Look at your phone. The question will show up there first. There is a bit of delay with YouTube. Which Spring Data Cassandra, which one should you avoid? Cassandra repository, Cassandra operation, SQL session, find all, Spring Data what?
We did cover this.
Yeah, so 9 people like before. So yeah, we have some serious player with us today. That's right. See what I just told you, constant learner, bam, here you go, fastest now. Joao Pavat, Andy, Xava, Melroy. Yeah, so names that we saw on chat. So thank you for staying with us up to the end. Question 3. In TimeLeaf, how are called reusable code section? Fragments, component, views, or layer? Yeah, I cannot trick you. That's really fragment, as I stated at the very end. Oh, it could have been tricky. I know. And Andy now take the lead. Wow, so it's tough. It's tough. Question 4. Answer fast to get more points. How is called the single sign-on authentication we use today? GWT, O2, OpenID Connect, HTTP Basic, or just Google?
This one could be tricky.
Yes, but most of them are correctly.
Excellent.
So you are the best. Okay, last question for today. And fast to get more points. Which database did we use?
Oh, this should be an easy one.
GCP, PostgreSQL, Cassandra hosted in Astra, known. Everything was in memory. What an ending, right? I think we did our work properly today, as Aaron, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So
yeah, well, that was
let's-
all you. No.
No.
I just provided the color commentary.
Okay, and Xavi is our winner for today. Congratulations. Hope you
Hey, all
enjoyed
right.
the session. We try that to be interactive. We would like to keep improving. So we just open. Can I do have that or not? Yeah, here it is. What should we do to improve our workshop? I don't need to stay on that screen. We could watch that later. But anyway, it was all the content for today. To stay in touch with us, Discord, we are there 24/7, answering your question there once the YouTube live stopped. We told you about academy.datastacks.com to learn about Cassandra. To learn about what's new, what will be the workshop in 2 weeks, datastacks.com/workshop. But I can give you a spoiler: blockchain. And yeah, if you stay with us up to the end, please subscribe to the channel, make it grow, like the video. This is how you made us famous, and we can come back every 2 weeks.
Yep. And remember, sign up for Cassandra Forward.
Cassandra Forward. Yeah, please, 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 please. And with that, that's a wrap up. Almost on time. Thank you everyone for coming, and yeah, hope to see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.